I'm Chris Hadfield. I work for the County Council in the Sustainable Travel team. We're looking at generally walking and cycling, but I've got the short straw tonight and I've come to talk about all sorts of transport issues. Next slide, please. The links, obviously, between transport and carbon seem to be running through the citizens' jury, the question that you've got. The graph that I Googled on the right-hand side of that demonstrates that transport is a major contributor in terms of carbon emissions. I think that's probably a bit of an underestimate, potentially taken during COVID in 2020. So I think you're somewhere between a quarter and a third of emissions generally come from transport. That makes it the largest contributor to UK carbon emissions. That transport sector covers all sorts of things. Freight transport, obviously sort of normal day-to-day trips, internal waterborne freight, all sorts of exciting things like that. And all of this obviously is feeding into the government's target of being net zero by 2050. So some of the numbers in the middle of that pie chart, 405 megatons of carbon dioxide within the year is an enormous number. So there's a lot of work to try and get towards net zero. At the moment, I discovered over the last couple of days writing these slides, we have an awful lot of plans linked to transport across Lancashire. The umbrella policy that sits over the top of everything is the local transport plan. We're on the third version of that at the moment, although that has expired now. Underneath that, the local transport plan covers everything. There are sort of themes within that cover freight transport, personal transport, leisure transport, all sorts of plans in terms of infrastructure across the county, so building new roads, building new cycle paths, all sorts of things like that. Underneath that, you sort of get into a bit more detail in the highways and transport master plans. So there's 5 of those that cover the county. Central Lancashire covers Preston, South Ribble and Chorley are contained within that one. And that gets into a bit more detail in terms of specific schemes that we're looking to deliver over a certain time period. And they're sort of getting close to being out of date now, need a bit of a refresh. Bus service improvement plan pretty much does what it says on the tin. It's all about trying to improve bus journey times, reliability of the services to try and make them more attractive to people. Generally outside really big cities, public transport use has been dropping over a number of years. So there's a bit of a case to be made to get people to get back on public transport. The highways decarbonisation strategy is something that our highway section, sort of the people you see out in yellow jackets all over the roads all the time, that's really focused on trying to make the way that we operate as an organisation and the work that we do on the road reduces carbon as much as possible in terms of choosing the best materials to use in building new highways and resurfacing highways, and also sort of the methodologies that we use as part of that to try and keep carbon as low as possible. The two at the bottom on the right-hand side, the highways and transport strategy and environment and climate strategy, also have an extra economic strategy. They sort of come as a package of 3, and they basically cover the next 2 years, 2023 to 2025, and that's quite a direct plan in terms of what the county council want to happen, across all those areas. The environment and climate ones made it onto this list linked to transport because that's where all the EV vehicle infrastructure and things like that are tied in with that. The highways and transport covers all sorts of exciting transporty things, walking, cycling, all our highway stuff. The cycling and walking strategy, which has the catchy name of actively moving forward, It's a 10-year strategy that sort of runs to 2028, I think. I know a bit more about that one because that one's mine. There are a range of sort of targets linked to that, to do with walking, cycling, and to do with general physical activity, because we wrote that strategy in sort of linked in with our public health colleagues in the council as well. And the electric vehicle infrastructure strategy, sort of on the back of central government keep throwing enormous amounts of money around to try and encourage people to move towards, to make that transfer towards electric vehicles. So one of the biggest barriers to that is the lack of public charging infrastructure that there is around the place. So yeah, we've got a strategy now for trying to sort that out. The transport plans that we need, these are things that are sort of on my desk-ish at the moment, needing a bit of work on. Local Transport Plan 4 is the refresh of that overall umbrella strategy across all our transport activities. That should be complete towards the end of this calendar year. On the back of doing that, highways and transport master plans will get updated as well with that extra level of detailing. The local cycling and walking infrastructure plans, that's basically a big map of cycling and walking paths, and they are pretty much on my desk at the moment. They're going to be signed off by the County Council's Cabinet in the beginning of May. Hopefully some people in the room will have seen the consultation and engagement that we've done around that over the last sort of 6 months or so. But they're things that we're working on, and there's probably a lot of other things that need to be on that list in terms of new policies and plans that we need to be able to drive things forward. But across all of those, and certainly in terms of the links to carbon, I think these are the key transport themes listed up there that I think that we need to look at. Some slightly more obvious than others. Obviously, walking and cycling is a pretty low carbon way to travel. Public transport does bring emissions with it, but the idea in sort of changing people's transport modes away from private car use, private petrol engine, diesel engine car use towards public transport gives us savings in terms of carbon emissions. Electric vehicles obviously works from an emissions point of view, but there are also sort of issues linked with just having vehicles on the road in terms of particulate from brakes and tyres and all sorts of things like that, which obviously have health impacts as well. Transport technology is a bit of a vague one. That's largely linked to sort of traffic signals and stuff like that, that if we can join them all up together and ensure that traffic flows better across the transport network, then that helps reduce emissions in the way that we work. So just a little quick bit on all of those four main areas. Cycling and walking, the targets that we have to double the number of people cycling by 2028 and increase the number of people walking by 10% by 2028. Obviously a little bit different for walking than cycling because the walking numbers at the moment are quite high, particularly in urban areas. But generally across the country, numbers of people cycling are pretty low. Schemes that we've got doing that to help deliver on those targets, to build a network of cycle and walking infrastructure that we've just created the new plans for. Safer, greener and healthier streets are something that we're starting to deliver in parts of the county, and that's more based around neighbourhoods, making it easier for people to walk and cycle. And we also have what I would call a revenue programme, but that will mean nothing to most people in the room. Something that isn't building new paths and new bits of road, where we get into cycle training and promotion and that sort of thing. Next slide. Public transport, the targets linked to that are reduction in bus journey times, 90% of services being on time, so it's all about that journey time reliability so that people can rely on public transport to make those journeys, and an aim to increase bus patronage by 10%. Most of that is based around schemes like the one on Friargate at the moment that's going to have a new bus gate put in, and that'll help the buses flow more easily by removing the traffic that goes around them, to make ticketing simpler and go across different operators, because obviously that can be a bit of a barrier to people when they need to do multi-trip journeys and they have to buy new tickets, and it all makes it harder work than it needs to be. And also moving back towards having some real-time passenger information, which again gives people that confidence that the things are going to arrive when they say they're going to. Electric vehicles, we have a target of getting over 6,500 public charging points across Lancashire by 2030. The key element to that obviously is engaging with public sector in terms of public car parks to site those, and also the private sector to find various places where we'd be able to get those charging points sited. I think that one's in St George's Centre that I managed to find. I think I paid for that about 15 years ago, so it has been there a while. Next slide. The transport technology, obviously as mentioned, trying to increase those journey times for road users, and just the main schemes that we're doing that with, linked to the Transforming Cities Fund, which is doing the work that's on sort of Ringway and Friargate at the moment. Obviously, as I mentioned before, with the public transport stuff, the real-time passenger information, and an extra bit of gobbledygook for everybody, urban traffic management systems. That's a much bigger system trying to link together the whole city's transport network in terms of signals. So we have bits of the city at the moment that are joined together, so you can get sort of green waves to get through certain parts of the city to help smooth those traffic flows. But if the whole system's joined up, then hopefully we can make